Good afternoon. Christopher Brown, wearing two hats. First as the chairman of the Business Council of the UNWTO, the private sector arm of the UNWTO, and also as managing director of the Tourism and Transport Forum in Australia. And firstly to you, a commiseration that unfortunately Ireland won't join us in the quarterfinals of the Rugby World Cup, but you can cheer Australia on as we beat England on Saturday, which I'm sure will give you just as much pleasure.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yes, sorry for reminding you. And what was great to see was a little island called Fiji, which has made it through to the quarterfinals at the expense of some of those awful northern hemisphere countries who we're hearing so much about. Look, first on behalf of the Australian delegation, and I think with our Kiwi friends, there's about 15 people in the room today, and it's not easy being green. To wear this badge, it's 15.5 tonnes of carbon, or $350 to pay to play. So anyone who says simply it's easy and it's cheap and it's not hard to do, they're wrong. However, it's a small price to pay considering the ramifications. As we sit here today and discuss this issue, I'm mindful that a couple of years ago I was on a similar panel for UNWTO talking about pandemics, and a couple of years before that talking about security. This is effectively the next of the horizontal issues that, despite all the things we have to do in a day, there's bigger issues that wash across us to which tourism seems invariably more exposed than most. The next one, I presume, from our perspective, will probably be labour shortages. Two issues, labour and climate, that will persist for the next 20, 25 years. And this is a serious issue that deserves serious response by serious people. To those to the left who would suggest we should all sit in caves and live by candlelight and not ever leave, and that will save the planet, I say you will not take the world with you. You'll simply alienate a community and will get no progress. Or to those to the right who waste our time and the world's oxygen by debating if there is climate change and whether we should do something about it, I similarly say get out of our way, because the rest of us are here to try and address a serious issue. And to the tourism industry, it's our responsibility. Francesco Frangeli this morning spoke about the need to participate in this debate. With all due respects to him, while agreeing, we can't just participate, we have to lead it. If not the tourism industry, then who's going to do it? We have a greater economic imperative and a greater moral imperative than most to lead this debate, to do something about it. And that's both accepting all sorts of, and leading the world in innovative technologies that can reduce our footprint on the world. And it's also through educating our customers, educating regulators. Because there's three waves of climate change coming. The last wave, the third wave, is the climate wave, where actually the snow will melt, the wetlands will be inundated by seawater, the rivers will dry up, and the islands will sink and the reefs will bleach. We have two other waves before that. The first one is the consumer wave, where our customers are telling us, if you don't do something about it, one, I'll either stay home, or two, I'll go to your competitor who is doing something about it. And second wave is the regulators. And the Gordon Brown, the great man himself, has now taken over the UK, whose contribution to climate change was simply put a tax on. He didn't sequester any of that money to address climate change. He simply opportunistic move to whack a tax on aviation. We have to resist knee-jerk responses like that. We have to reward those politicians and regulators who work with an industry to do what speakers here have spoken about today, to continue the great work this industry does in recalibrating the world's wealth, at the same time as us taking a serious stance. Now, we can take a serious stance, and even in Davos, in this magnificent city and valley we're in, the beautiful Steinberg and Belvedere, where I'm lucky enough to be staying, 2 days in a row when I've used a towel and hung it up, I've come back and it's been washed, bleached, and a new towel folded. Now, this is at the conference hotel hosting the climate change conference. What are we going to do to get through to our businesses? Stop doing it. There's an entire room. Nowhere in my room is there even a little bit of plastic saying hang your towel up. This is just not good enough if we're to expect, and quite rightly demand, that regulators don't tax us out of existence, that we don't do something ourselves. We can act. This room can change this industry. So in preaching to the converted, I suppose I'd, like you, sit in a room for 3 days and listen to a flurry of colourful speeches, and it's all marvellous. But when we go home from Davos and we've paid all the pleasure of carbon trading to get here and reduce our own travel, go home and talk to your own governments about having the tourism minister going into that cabinet room and being a lobbyist and advocate for climate change. Unfortunately, both Australia and America, the Bonnie and Clyde of the world, didn't sign Kyoto. I'm ashamed that my country didn't sign it. I guarantee you, whenever it happens at Bali, we'll sign it, and I'm hoping that the US government will follow. But the rest of us can do things at a small level. Encourage our customers to use public transport. Encourage our transport operators to embrace biodiesel. Encourage our aviation regulators to change some of the airspace corridor practices so planes aren't flying around over towns burning fuel. There's a range of measures we can do. Design new green hotels. Let's start with new building. It's very expensive to retrofit. But where is the innovative global design on green hotels? We have to lead. We have to do something about it. I'd like my kids to be able to see the Barrier Reef. I'd like them to be able to come and see the Matterhorn with some snow on it. But more than just, our economic imperative to do it, and it is in our economic interest to lead this debate and change practice. We're also guardians of the place too. We have a moral imperative. So anybody who says this is not morality, it's only economics, is only half right. It's both. And if not us, who? And if not now, when? Thanks.